just almost. We've never been skiing there, but we've gone there a couple. Or she didn't, because she's in. I'm just giving you a heads up. Okay. No, I know. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Midwives Advisory to order. Our first business will be a roll call, and I'd like each of us to introduce ourselves, and if you could just state what city you come from. So,
Michael Nix, I'm an OB from Austin.
Lori Fremgen, I'm a midwife from Austin.
Victoria Meinhardt, midwife from Austin.
I'm Meredith Rentz. I'm a public member from California.
That ended our Austin. I'm Janet San Antonio.
Hello, Nelson. I'm a midwife from Grand Prairie, Texas, which is halfway between Dallas and Fort Worth.
Hi, I'm Destiny Hooper from Houston, Texas.
Thank you. We do have a quorum today. Thank you, everyone, for traveling. Appreciate that. All right, and our next order of business is the approval of our minutes. So if you take a moment to review the minutes from our September meeting.
I had a question about the minutes. Is it not allowed to mention what the public comment questions were?
on there? It just basically says a person's name and they had a comment, but it doesn't say what the comment was.
Mary Winston, TDLR. Minutes are a quick summation, typically for minutes, because I'm the recording secretary for another group. You just have to have what motions and what's acted upon. So even the public comment wouldn't be required to be there. But since we have it broadcast on YouTube, that's kind of our catch safe, that you can go and listen and watch what the question was. So because we don't have those minutes requirements, we go to that extra step. But no, it's not a requirement to put there.
Thank you for that clarification. Now, for any discussions, the meeting minutes, I'll defer to Lori since I was not present for the September meeting.
Well, I make a motion that we accept the minutes.
All in favor of that motion, raise your right hand, say aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you, and the minutes are approved. Now, once again, as we've done in several of our meetings, we'd like to defer that public comment to the end of the meeting, so we've had a chance to hear everything. So that leads us on to our staff reports.
Madam Chair, board members, I'm Nick Bowinas of TDLR, and thank you for being here today. Thank you for your service to Texas. And here to bring you our executive office report, kind of a summary of what's been going on around the agency. I'll begin on a very sad note. Our agency lost one of its leaders. George Ferry, our longtime compliance director, passed away on October 31st. He fought a brave fight with cancer. George came to the agency back in 1991. He's been here a long time. He's a great man. He's already missed. And our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. Been a few months since state lawmakers have gone home, so to speak, after a busy 85th legislative session and a special summer session. TDLR staff's been busy implementing legislation that was passed during that time. All TDLR divisions have been involved in the process, which includes developing rules, communicating to stakeholders, appointing and prepping advisory boards, hiring additional staff, dealing with education, exams, IT programs, and more. A majority of the work has been completed, but this is a process that will continue as we implement programs into 2018 and 2019. As for new programs, to remind you, on May 29th, Governor Abbott signed House Bill 100 into law, which immediately brought oversight of the state's transportation network companies to TDLR. On September 1, TDLR picked up the state's podiatrists, and on November 1, we added 6 more health-related programs from the Department of State Health Services. Phase 2 of the 13 total programs that were granted to us 2 years ago. So we now have code enforcement officers, laser hair removal, massage therapy, mold assessors, remediators, offender education programs, and sanitarians. And next September, we'll pick up the state's behavioral analysts. I want to mention that as we add programs that are granted to us by the legislature, lawmakers have also deregulated 5 of our programs since 2003, and will deregulate 4 others in the next 2 years. We recommended that action after our planning process 2 years ago, which included public and industry feedback. The legislature agreed that the licensing requirement for those programs were unnecessary and burdensome, and doing so without them posed little or no threat to consumer protection. I briefly mentioned our every other year strategic planning, and we'll be going through that process again this upcoming spring of 2018. Last meeting, we talked a little bit about TDLR's response plan and actions for Hurricane Harvey relief. This fall, our staff worked hard to help our licensees and small businesses in the Gulf Coast area, which were hit pretty hard by Hurricane Harvey. In coordination with the governor's office and their Rebuild Texas efforts, we were implementing procedures to assist all eligible licensees in those affected areas to help them recover, return to work as quickly as possible by removing the burden of red tape. Our Harvey focus now is on the rebuild by providing small business and consumers the information they need to avoid any unlicensed activity and ensuring that they receive quality work for their hard-earned dollars. You get information on all this still on our website, tdlr.texas.gov, and on the governor's Rebuild Texas site as well. Back to our website for a minute, though. I wanted to share some recent web traffic with you associated with this program. Over the last 10 months, from the beginning of the year, January 1, until the end of October, your site had more than 15,000 page views, and that's an average of about 52 page views a day. 64% of those visitors accessed your site from a desktop computer, while 33% did so from a smartphone and 3% from a tablet. The top reasons for visiting your site, laws and rules led the way, followed by applications and forms, exam and CE information, advisory board information, and frequently asked questions. Also wanted to add that we're always looking at our websites, working to improve them, to make sure they're fresh and informative, and another goal of ours is to make them as user-friendly as possible, so any thoughts you might have on that, we can pass them along at any time. Also wanted to remind you, if you haven't already, to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter to keep up with TDLR activities and news. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
Lori Fremgen, I did have a question. The roster of midwives is not up on the website, and I've gotten feedback from a couple of people about that, and I'm wondering.
Check on that.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Mary Winston, you're just being, I'm sorry, Dr. Nix.
I have a separate question.
Oh,
so-
okay. You're looking, Lori, for just the list of licensees.
Mm-hmm.
We'll show you how to get there, and if we have to make an announcement, we will.
Okay.
Janet Dermeyer, I called Yvonne and I went through that process, and it's not very practical.
Okay.
So you have to search for a particular midwife by name, and then you'll finally eventually get there, but it seemed like in our rules.
There's a way to get to the roster. We will work with the web team to make that available.
On the website? Yeah.
There's a way to maneuver it. I'm not Madam Tech savvy, but we will figure that out. And if we need to get an FAQ out there for everyone to be able to manipulate it, we've had another program that suggests, and we had to learn how to manipulate that one as well. So we'll get that out there. And if it ends up just being an FAQ for us to click, we can do that.
Great. Thank you.
Mike Nix, I just had a question. What were the programs that were are going to be deregulated?
It has the list.
We've got the list. Well, actually, let me find it, and I'll get back to you.
We'll look back around to that. While you're looking for that, we can reach on out to Compliance Division update.
I'm Yvonne Feinleib with the Compliance Division. Before I give my report, I will tell you that the rosters are available on the website. When you go to search for licensees at the top menu, when you get to that place where you can choose which license you're searching for at the top, there are some little links, and one of them goes to the rosters. But we can definitely add an FAQ that says, I don't want to use the search, I want to see a roster of all the midwives, and we can put a link to it. Would that work?
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
And Mary Winston, I think you said that better. That's what I meant. Thank you. That's what I meant. We'll work that out.
So she meant to say.
okay, so you've got my report in the packet. Basically, Standard Affairs Work Group has been working very hard on proposed changes to the rules. Those are not in front of you at this meeting. They will be at a future meeting. They are moving the changes required from the legislative session. Most of them, there will be some changes that are going to stay in the work group, and there's going to be continued discussion. Public outreach, nobody has invited us to come and speak. I'm not sure what we would tell them, except that things are going smoothly. But if anybody does have a group that would like someone from compliance to come out and talk about how we do business, any changes, any section update, This is our group, which is now actually called Health Professions because of the addition of podiatry. And our group is involved in the transition in terms of all these meetings where different areas are coordinating and talking about making the transition go smoothly. I got massage therapy as a program to be the compliance contact. I've had massage before at DSHS, so I'm enjoying that, getting to see those people again and talk to them and find out what's changed in the field. But I'm very available to you if you have any questions. It looks kind of quiet because we really have been very focused on the Phase 2 transition, but that was accomplished smoothly and it's going well, and I'm hoping that next year we'll continue to work on implementation of any changes or updates that we might need. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Our next update is from the Education and Examination Division.
Sorry, we had other business back there trying to get the information for you, Doctor. Ray Pizarro, TDLR, Examination Education Director. Today I'll be pretty brief. As you heard Nick saying, we have a lot going on, a lot of different programs putting up together with you guys, with the midwives. We are going to be, Victoria, as we talked earlier, we're all going to have a work group, the education work group, sometime early next year. Prior to that work group, I just want to, we, the department, want to have some points of reference, something jot down so that the work group would be productive. We don't want to call a work group, twirl our thumbs and figure it all out right then and there. So it'll be good if we have something on paper and just as a starting point, so then you guys could, fill in the gaps. As you can see with the jurisprudence exam this year so far, fiscal year, anytime we say it's years, it's usually fiscal year, which started in September. There's been 6 folks who have tested, and last fiscal year there was 66. We do have 3 licensed schools, 2 of them in El Paso and 1 in Midland. We do have a midwifery school inspection checklist, which we've just put together. So it'll be good to do an initial inspection and periodic inspections on the school. We haven't started that. We've worked with compliance to make sure we've crossed all our T's and dotted our I's, what we need to be looking at when we go into those schools. And we have hired a new education inspector in the Dallas area. So when we start getting these up and running for all other schools as well, we'll have somebody to do those inspections as well. If that's all I have, I know that we need to talk about, but if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them.
I think, Lori Fremgen, I think we've been compiling a little list for the education work group to start working
Perfect.
on.
Mm-hmm.
So,
We have.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always, at least for me, I like to show up with some homework done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Victoria Meinhardt, I think that by the time we get to that work, some of the work is outlined in just the new rules, because we're adopting new rules. So,
Sure.
That's a good point. And then also, as we discussed earlier, just looking at other states and how they're running things and
Right.
successes there and what,
Right.
what we can jump off.
Care and education work group, for this group, it's pretty much going to be somewhat hand in hand.
Yeah.
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 So,
So
Yeah.
I'm excited to get started
We
next
tried to
year.
do some of your work, but it didn't go over.
get there.
We can't. It has to stay there.
Yeah.
It has to stay in the education group.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll
Okay.
get there. I mean, I think the standards of care work group just need to complete that work on the rules first. It was just like, that's the first point,
Right.
and from there, then, we can go forward.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's
We'll
going
get
to
there.
inform a lot of what we do. So, well, I'm excited.
Awesome.
Anything else? Thanks.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I've got answers to your questions of the programs that are being deregulated between now and 2019. They include hair shampooing and conditioning, for-profit legal service contract administrators, vehicle booting, temporary common workers, and vehicle protection product warranters. And the roster of midwives, if you go to the tdlr.texas.gov and go to the top bar, hit search verify, and under that, hit search licensees, and download licensee files, and there's a link to all of our programs, including midwives. So the roster is there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. Moving on to enforcement.
Hi there, good afternoon. My name's Karen Cox, and I'm giving the enforcement report, which will be brief. The main thing that we want to address is the fact that enforcement has created a new health-related services team for prosecutors, consisting of me, Karen Cox, and my coworker, Virginia Fields. And we will prosecute cases in the health-related fields, the podiatrists and some others. And it got started at the beginning of October, really. Charlotte Melder will continue to be involved with the midwife program, but I'll be the one giving the staff report to the advisory board. We've had key statistics for 2017. We opened 27 midwife cases. We resolved 15, and we had no penalties or final orders. May I answer? Oh, we've issued, since we created the new team, we have issued 2 notices of alleged violation. I can't discuss pending cases in any kind of detail, but we have issued some pleadings in this program. May I answer any questions?
Janet Dermeyer, I wanted to know, in that process, will anything change as far as if there's a standard of care issue, you're still going to be implementing the expert witness
Yes.
in those cases?
It will be handled in the same way that they've been handled up until now.
I think one of the frustrations that we have is I think most of the midwives on this board have been expert witnesses, but we never know the outcome of them at all. And we were told that there would be maybe a quarterly or a biannual meeting where we could go over those cases, because for us, previous to coming to TDLR, it was a very educational thing for the midwives in general in our community. So since we don't know how that results as an expert witness, we don't know if that case, like, did you take our report and make a decision based on that, or did y'all go ahead and make a different decision? You just considered our report. We don't really know any of that outcome, the way that works out. So we don't know where that educational point is. And if we did that, if you know anything about how they're going to do that, because just to be clear, what we think that would look like is that we actually get to talk about the case itself. No names, but so that we'll know why a certain discipline was put on a particular case. But if we're just going to get together and talk about statistics, that's not very educational.
Mary Winston, TDLR. Sorry, Karen. When you guys came over, yay. We really,
love you,
yay.
Mary.
I love y'all. And I do. Why are you laughing back there? But we did talk about the previous process.
Right.
And it was very educational. Whereas it was a public record, definitely, it was not so readily accessible as YouTube is. And we had some concerns of there's a lot of identifying information that was available and just out there. So we talked about having something quarterly to where we're not so that we're giving names, right?
Right.
And where we're worried about HIPAA concerns.
Sure.
But where it can still be educational. That won't be the thing. That will be a separate meeting. Now, we haven't worked up as to if it's going to be more than a work group, and it needs to be an open meeting because we want the availability for the students to see what has occurred. What we were trying to wait on is to get a bandwidth of cases, not 1 or 2, but a body to trend and to discuss to where we can have more than a 5-minute, hey, this is what's going on. But we can work on that. Karen is, sorry, you've been kind of thrown
That's
under there.
okay.
But that's
I'm
something
not
that
aware of
Karen,
this, so.
yeah, probably wasn't even aware of. So that's something that our advisory board staff would have to work with enforcement and with the experts and get the time to where we can schedule this public meeting as more of a summit, not an advisory board meeting. So it can still be educational and for everybody, but we won't have the formalities of this type of meeting. It would strictly be an educational summit for midwives.
Lori Fremgen, so would that kind of look like more of a discussion? Like, because we've got the formal way we communicate here with the
Yes.
Robert's Rules of Order and everything.
Yes.
So it would be more of a,
We would have to think about that.
okay.
Because we do want you to be able to, part of education is being able to respond and ask questions.
Right.
So the issue has been getting a body of work, also formulating something that, most importantly, is that we are not violating HIPAA.
Yeah.
And putting information out that we shouldn't put out. Other than that, there's no concern with that education. So what it's going to look like, I will get help from this advisory board, and I'll send it up the food chain as to what the asks are and what our overall goal is education, keeping with confidentiality. Yes, ma'am?
Victoria Meinhardt, it seems like this might be something too that we can tackle in the educational work group as to how we present it and what kind of,
That would be
just making sure that this information gets out there and work with enforcement and just make sure that we don't lose this piece.
Yes, and
so
that actually is a
because it's
very good idea.
It is incredibly important that all midwives see what, like that, like you were talking about trending, right? Like what mistake is happening out there that, y'all are running into more frequently, and having a way to present that information that is safe and HIPAA compliant, but also, fulfills that job of making sure that people get educated. So we'll just put it on our list of numerous things to do and,
Yes.
and visit that.
Because in other professions that we regulate, we try to trend all of them because we want, education is what we want the professionals to know what's right, what's not right, okay. And then we develop trends because our enforcement division sees those trends, and then we'll know, then we'll end up, not to compare you guys with tow truck drivers, we see different, that's a large program, and we have certain trends. And so, TDLR has a vast array of, I wouldn't compare you to the water well drillers either, but what are the trends and what are the violations that we see? And we'll kind of target that because we've had summits and for ACR, for, different air conditioner repair, different programs. So yes, you guys are new. We don't have that body of work yet, but putting it in that work group and figuring out what those asks are, what we can do, and getting it scheduled. Because with you guys and babies popping out whenever they're ready, it's hard to get it. I'm thrilled everyone's here, except, Dr. Gilbert couldn't make it, but this is a great turnout. So, yes, we'll start there, and on our end, we'll be working on our end to see if we can get that scheduled.
Yeah.
Just gave Tamala something else to do.
That's it. Lori Fremgen and Karen, just so you know, I think this has been one of the changes in our move here that's probably been the most difficult to adjust to because it was a public forum. It was almost like a tribunal where we all came together, we all kind of saw what the issues were and all had the opportunity to hear them. And now that it's moved into this private forum, which I actually totally get why it's private. It makes a lot of sense to me. It's just something that's really different for us, and I think that piece feels like it's missing to all of us up here. So.
Janet Dermeyer, I also wanted to kind of know, in that expert witness, is that how weighty is that in the final decision?
Very weighty. It's especially on standard of care issues and standard of care cases. We would give significant weight to that. Simply because it's in standard of care, a lot of times it's very fact specific. And it's easy for me to see when a case, for example, involves poor record keeping. But the standard of care would be something entirely outside of my experience, so they are given great weight.
Mhm. Oh, and one other thing about spending time with, well, Vicki and I had originally talked about, kind of the day in the life
Oh, yes.
of a midwife. So I would just like to invite you to do that.
Oh, thank you.
Again, I did send an email.
We received that, and I
While we
believe
were
my
all
colleague Virginia
vacation.
Fields is working on that.
Yeah, okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
we're there for you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
This is important.
Yeah,
You can
Charlotte's
call
had a
any of
couple
us.
years
Yeah.
of
Mhm.
learning, and you
Mhm.
guys got thrown in,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Trial by fire.
Anything else that
We
I can
do,
answer?
we do want to work together to make this the
Thank
best
you. Thank
midwifery
you very
board there
much.
is for all midwives and all consumers.
Thank you. Thank you. We want to work with you all as well. It's very important to us, so.
All right.
Thank you very
Now-
much.
Now, Karen, I have one question for you. Is there anything
Yes.
the board can do to better support y'all?
You're doing it right now. Just continuing with the expert witness practice. And if there's anything else we can think of, we will certainly follow the channels and bring it to your attention.
Great.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Oh, thank you.
Good afternoon. Elizabeth Salinas Strittmatter with the Office of the General Counsel. I was asked last meeting to look into the question of whether midwives could become first responders in the state of Texas. I have some good news and I have some bad news. As you'll see in your packet, beginning on page 9 and continuing through page 51, emergency medical services are defined in a very specific way. First responder is not actually defined in any statute, save for one, and that has to do with Homeland Security, so it's not applicable. So I called DSHS, and what they say that they refer to are the Texas Administrative Codes, Title 25, Part 1, Chapter 157, Subchapter A, Rule 157.3, which essentially says that if you want to become an emergency medical services provider, you have to be licensed. So once you are licensed as an EMS, which is different from an EMT, once you are licensed through DSHS as an EMS, then you have to either form your own FRO, First Responder Organization, and obtain a license through DSHS, or you can attach yourself to an already existing FRO, which is also licensed through DSHS. Now, DSHS also says that people who are EMS licensed and attached to FROs cannot just say that they only want to treat certain people. If you are licensed as an EMS and you're attached to an FRO and you're called to a scene of a disaster, whether natural or man-made, if you're attached to that FRO that is then mobilized by the state, you're expected to render aid to any person who needs aid pursuant to what the, I guess, the organizers of the aid see as the needs being at that particular time. So their response was that midwives could become EMS licensed and then find an FRO that they can attach themselves to, but they did not want you to expect that you would be able to then say that you only want to engage in rendering care for women who are pregnant, that you would have to adhere to providing any medical care for anybody if you're called upon to do so. It's a rather lengthy process, apparently, getting licensed.
Oh, yeah.
I have attached all of the applicable Texas administrative codes for you, so you can see I've also attached the the statute that gives DSHS the authority to do the EMS licensure, and that statute is the Texas Occupation Code, Chapter 157, and specifically it's 157.003. So that's pretty much what I can offer you in terms of the answer to the question, and of course that is outside the purview of TDLR. So if anybody wanted to go do that, you'd work with DSHS. That's not something that TDLR could assist with. Okay?
Interesting.
All right.
Thank you for
for following up
Questions?
on that. We sure do appreciate
No,
it.
I have a comment, though, Janet Dermeyer. Everybody knows I'm going to have one. Yeah. So I don't know of any midwife on this panel who's ever called EMS where they've been real excited to come and help deliver a baby. Most EMTs that we work with go, oh, it's a baby. No, y'all take care of it. And, we happen to be the experts in that field. We're the experts of out of hospital births. And I think the Department of Health is shooting themselves in the foot and overlooking a jewel of a resource for, in the case of a disaster, because we've got all of our equipment in the back of the car. There was a lot of language in all of this for certified nurse midwives. And you have to understand the only help that they can render is if you bring the patient to the hospital. It's not helping the community out there. And they're not very likely going to be able to go out there to assist in a delivery because they have to work within under their umbrella physician, backing, and then they're under contract with the hospital. Here you've got midwives who are already in the field. We've got our equipment in the trunk. We know how to deliver babies without the stuff. And so, just for public record, I wanted to say that because I think it's a sad thing. We're used to being treated like stepchildren, so we're kind of used to it. We didn't really have big goals that we were going to be first responders. But you know what? We are first responders anyway, because every midwife I know is very quick to go and assist and help when there's a disaster on our own.
And I
Thank you,
can certainly
Janet.
appreciate that comment, but I would just like to clarify that the statute we're talking about does not relate to TDLR, and so we can't comment on the statutes as they relate
That's
to
okay.
other
I
state
just wanted to
agencies.
say that.
Oh, Elizabeth,
Yeah.
Mary Winston, she knows.
I know.
That's why
I
I
do.
just say thank you. And
Thank
Are
you.
there any other questions?
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, my gosh. We're on to licensing statistics.
Hi, Leonard Rivas with the Licensing Division. In case you're wondering, they always give me a hard time because they say my reports are so quick that,
They are,
sorry.
That's okay. They give me a hard time too, but it's okay.
Okay, all right.
for different reasons.
I know.
Very different reasons, Jerry.
Okay, so the report you have in front of you are the licensing statistics. And it looks a little different than what you're used to getting. So from this point forward, there'll be first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. Okay? So the fourth quarter would be June through August. So if you look there, we had 9 new licenses issued, 4 renewals, and then the total population at the end of the fourth quarter was 266 licensed midwives.
Hang on, we're all trying to find it.
Okay.
Because it's
It's, yeah.
page
It was way down there.
Page what?
one,
Page what?
hang-
52.
oh, 52. We
It's
got,
all these
we got lots of
DSHs.
pages.
Oh, it's all the rules that are in there, yeah, in the packet.
Oh, it's after.
Before.
Is it after all those rules?
It should be,
It's
yeah.
before.
Is it before?
Yeah, look at the
Page
number on the
51.
side. Yeah, that.
It's page 51. Yes.
Is your clock still running, Ray?
Ah,
Oh, is he in a
look at
hurry?
you.
No, he gives me a hard time.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did everyone
Yeah,
find the
we're there.
report? Okay. So fourth quarter again is June through August. 9 new licenses, 4 renewals, and the total population, 266 midwives.
All right.
Renewal notices should be going out, well, the renewal postcard, not the notice, should be going out in the next couple of weeks for February.
Oh, okay.
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 We have 3 new staff members that have joined the medical and health professions team. Charo McCrane, who's from the Department of State Health Services. Audrey Estran, who came to us from the Department of Motor Vehicles. And Veronica Coronado, that came to us from the Podiatry Board.
All right.
That's all I have for you at this time, unless you have specific questions. Lori, I know you do.
I know, I've got a question. Lori Fremgen. So I know that we've been talking about meeting and haven't
Yes,
done it yet.
correct.
And the thing that's on my mind is upping our initial licensing standards to match what the national standards are. And I believe there's been some confusion or some comments. Is that in education?
Right.
Is that licensing?
So based on the conversation Yvonne and I and you had at the advisory board summit,
Right.
that is an E&E work group.
Okay.
Okay.
Add that to your list.
Okay.
Okay.
What am I adding specifically?
The
initial licensing and national
requirements.
national standards?
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll take it on.
Okay. Now,
Okay.
Janet, I know you had something, right?
Well, I thought maybe I was going to wait until the agenda items, but
Okay.
I do want to add that to an agenda item for next time, so
Okay.
I'll just, if I can say it now, or, okay, because I wanted to look at those standards for licensure, because we're having some big issues with neonatal resuscitation. There's only one program that right now is approved, and it's been grossly problematic across the board for all midwives. And it's not because it's always been a problem. It's a problem because the only program we've accepted now is the American Academy of Pediatrics, and they changed their program drastically. And over 50% of what they're requiring, not only do we not do, most of it's illegal for us to do, so.
Janet, this is Victoria. E&E approved integrated resuscitation of the newborn, so that is going to be coming, and that is going to be a way to get people to do their resuscitation.
I'm not questioning that. I'm saying that right now, as far as
Right now,
licensure goes,
I know, in this
it's-
moment, because the train is
NRP
slow.
is required.
It's a slow-moving yacht,
And
so
so-
we're doing the best we can. Like, I mean, it has been approved, so it is coming.
It has nothing to do with E&E. What I'm
Yes.
talking about is part of my license,
Mhm.
I have to have NRP.
Right.
It's a licensure issue. So we've not had any licensure meetings. I chair that.
Yeah.
So I want to have a meeting that I'd like to put on the agenda so we can discuss what is required for licensure. Y'all can determine what that is, as far if it falls under education. But right
Right.
now, my license is I have to have NRP.
So
And
my-
right now, the only NRP available that we've approved is through AAP.
So my question then, because we, in our education work group, did come to the decision that we would like to approve another course, so that, you don't have to just get NRP, you can go through integrated resuscitation of the newborn. Then is, how long does that take to implement the decision to, hey, let's make that possible? How long does it take to implement decisions like what Jana's talking about? Because, I mean, I agree.
Well,
So
we have to
how do
start somewhere.
So how do
And
we
we'll
implement
start it now.
that decision-making
Is-
process?
Lori Fremgen, so is that a rule change that needs to happen in, like,
Because I think we didn't we address this in standards of work?
Yes, you heard me go,
Yes.
on the, okay. Sorry, Leonard. You thought you were going to
Yeah,
step
he
away
just
from
thought it
that.
was
No.
bad.
We pulled him into the vortex.
Well, we've kind of pulled him into a different part of the agenda. So,
I
not
was
to
gonna
cut the
wait.
discussion off at all, but I think we're getting up to recommendations and things like that.
That's why I was going to
So,
put it down there.
Leonard's nodding vigorously because he wants to get up and leave. But I think we're getting to agenda items. Let's wait till we get to the recommendations part.
Great.
And I know you're making notes. I am too.
Okay.
Of what we can handle, because I think we've kind of left Leonard's bandwidth. Am I right, Leonard?
Yes.
Okay.
You want your time up here to be shorter or longer next time?
Longer.
Longer?
Satisfying.
Okay. What does Ray want?
Do you have any other questions? No?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. All right. The next item on our agenda is the update and presentation on the water birth survey, and it's my understanding that that presentation will be deferred to a subsequent meeting.
Yes, there was, Mary Winston, a scheduling conflict, and so we're going to have to move it. That person was not available to come today.
Okay.
They were, then they weren't, so. yeah.
Okay.
The next agenda item is possible appointment of work group members, an update from work groups, discussions, and possible recommendation, specifically the standard of care work group.
Hold on.
Good update.
Gotta get Lori Fremgen. I am chairing the Standard of Care Work Group meeting, and we've had a few more meetings, I believe, since our last full board meeting, continuing to work on our rules, and we came to an agreement on large for gestational age and the newborn section that I think everyone is satisfied with. Yeah,
Can you
he's
share
nodding.
what those are? 'Cause
Yeah, large for gestational age is now defined as greater than 97th percentile. So generally speaking, that's about 10 pounds. So a baby that's about 10 pounds or over, our rules require that we refer them to a physician. And previous to that, it was a smaller weight. Or actually, it wasn't defined.
No, it wasn't. Victoria, it was completely undefined, and we were requested to make it 90th percentile, but we did lots of conversations and came up with 97th percentile, and the requirement is to refer to a physician, which means you just refer.
Yeah.
It's not that they, so
Yeah.
that's what we came to, which I believe we all felt was a pretty happy medium.
Yeah, exactly.
Michael Nix, and the reason we chose that 97th percentile was because that's where the preponderance of complications occur in those babies that are above the 97th percentile. So that's the
Right.
reason we chose that specific number.
Right. We found that in research somewhere. I can't
I think it
recall
was-
exactly.
I think it was up to date, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The next issue that we were able to resolve was the 42-week issue. Now, the proposed language is that at 42 and 0, the requirement is that there's collaboration with a physician. And the language is a little more, there's more language in that than just that, but I think we came to a good compromise on that as well. And then one of the issues that just kind of came up over and over again was ongoing risk assessment. And we spent some time making sure that ongoing risk assessment is kind of littered throughout our rules. And I mean, I think that was one of the main issues that would come up in complaints. And so that was important for us to make sure that that was actually in our rules in a number of places. And then the other thing is the FAQs. We keep throwing around, oh, we should make that an FAQ, we should make that an FAQ. I'm wondering, because a lot of this came up in our standard of care meetings, I'm wondering if there is a master list of FAQs
Yeah,
that
no
we want to
kidding.
make. I know I've been keeping a kind of a general list, and I guess we could go back through the meetings to find out, what the requests have been, but I'm just wondering if that's.
Mary Winston, TDLR,
Yeah.
definitely we can tighten up the FAQs, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And have an FAQ page, and that's going to come from the work group meeting, and I don't want to say FAQ work group, but from each work group or whoever's meeting, what do we want on the FAQ page? And so we can do that. We
Okay.
can have you want to clean that up and not have them in different places.
Yeah, I just was wondering, it just is kind of one of those things that keeps coming up over and over, and I want to just make sure that
It's
we're
addressed
tracking
in
that
one
somehow.
place.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then who's actually going to be the person writing them, and is that a work group process? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
We would work with the work group to write the FAQs.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I guess we have more work to do, guys.
Oh, how exciting.
And then, there was one other issue that came up in our last meeting, and it was an issue between the board members and the attorneys. And I just wanted to kind of seek a little clarification on that at this moment. And I'm just wondering, is the midwifery board part of TDLR?
You are not, for instance, okay, we have the
Okay.
commission, and the Texas Commission of Licensing and Regulation is not the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. So we could say, we're connected, they are our overarching body, but they aren't the department. They're the commission. So it's kind of the same relationship with each program. So midwives, the licensees, we regulate, we license midwives. Our advisory board has not the level of control that, I mean, our commission votes on the salary of our director. You know what I mean? They hire and, you know, that kind of thing. So you guys can't do that. But within your program, you're the experts, you're the people that we rely on. So just like the commission isn't a part of the department, but we're interconnected, the advisory boards aren't part of the department, but you're interconnected to your individual program, not all the programs in TDLR.
Okay.
Because our commissioners can't have any affiliation with any of the professions that we regulate.
Okay.
And you do. So that's, the nexus is really tight there.
So this is part of what I want clarification on. A line was kind of drawn in one of our work group meetings, and where the attorneys were suggesting that they are representing the state. And so then I was sitting there wondering, well, who's representing the board? And I just want that to be clear.
Can I jump in?
Sure.
I think that there is a misunderstanding. My remembrance of that meeting was not that enforcement ever said they're representing the state. What I believed enforcement to say was that they represent the entity that licenses the folks, the midwives, right? That they're the regulators. Not that they represent the state of Texas, but we are an agency of the state of Texas.
Right, of course.
But what I understood enforcement to be saying was that they're the prosecutors in charge of ensuring that the regulations as set forth by TDLR are followed in the field, and that any complaints received by against midwives are followed up accordingly and investigations are carried out. I don't believe that statement was ever meant to draw any kind of distinction or say that enforcement is somehow not on the same page as the board. And I don't remember a statement made by enforcement that said that. So I just wanted to clarify that my recollection of that meeting in the statement that was made by enforcement was that they were just trying to clarify that their stance when they are looking at the rules and being asked for their input is they're looking at it from the standpoint of regulators and being concerned about how they will present things to SOA if a case were to make it to SOA, and the standards of evidence that they have to look for. Because when we are writing rules, they're wanting to make sure that those rules are enforceable. And so their input comes from the standpoint of regulators and whether those rules can actually be enforced.
Okay.
Mary Winston, if I can stop choking.
Yeah.
As a lawyer, I was not at the meeting, and so
Yeah.
we're not going to go into hearsay.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
So because wasn't there, we don't know, and it was a conversation, right, in a meeting. So we're all on one accord. We have one thing we're trying to do is successfully, implement, incorporate, regulate, and license TDLR's professional body, including midwives. So when we're moving forward, we are trapped into a box of, we have other professions that, I've worked at another commission before, and they wanted us to regulate, someone was ugly to my child, which meant they told them to shut up. Well, that's very rude. And I would think bad for business, it would be bad for me, but we didn't regulate that. We had no rules or laws to say, you can't tell a child to shut up, or that wasn't part of our professionalism rules, right? So I wasn't at the meeting. I probably will be at all the rest of them, but we have one agenda that we really want to push forward, and that's successful incorporation of the midwives with their practice, with education, with the profession of midwifery in Texas. And so, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I did want that clarification because I feel a line was drawn, and I don't want to speak for Vicki, you can speak for yourself, but I believe we both had a similar experience of that, and I wanted to make sure that we are all on the same page.
We are. We're not drawing any lines.
Okay. Okay.
But, and everyone has a part, just as the commission has the nexus. It's not a part of the department, but they have an overarching authority. Well, they can't do what you do. They can't be a midwife, an electrician. I'm picking on the water well drillers today for some reason, I don't know. A water well driller, they can't box, they can't have an affiliation with that. But they have that authority, so they have that nexus. You all, because of your affiliation, because of your profession, you have the very specific duty of an advisory board to advise a specific profession, and we need that. I mean, we've discussed enforcement and the need for the experts because we can know the law, but, and I've had children, I didn't deliver them myself. You all can do that. You've been in the trenches. I've seen videos of things I never want to see again. And you do that all the time. So that we need that expertise. We need, as we trend the different violations, we need to, make you aware of that. And if there's a reason, why is this occurring? You would have the real live answers to that. We don't know. So if there's a line, if there was an impression that there was a line drawn, I'm sure it was just a miscommunication. Because we are all really seeking one thing.
Right.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Vicki.
Okay, Victoria. So I think that one of the things that's come up is that as we're going through this process of language in the rules, there's so much gray area in midwifery. And it is very challenging to take this gray area profession and turn it into black and white language that makes lawyers happy. And I understand that, and that's what I've been hearing in the Standards of Work group meeting over and over and over again. And I see the challenge. I do. And I think that all of us working together have come up with some language. And I feel like when we're in that process, when midwives have a particular kind of language that we know is going to probably hit that on the head, I think one of the things that is missing is much like I don't know how you got to where you are as a lawyer, I didn't do your job, you don't know how we got to be where we are as midwives. So
couldn't do it.
Right. So what Lori was suggesting earlier, that the lawyers here, if you all are willing to come do some time with the two of us to help you see what we do, I think it would really help create just a more communal approach to this so that you can kind of understand what world we're in and who we're serving and how it works out and what we do in our day. And I think it would just lead to a greater understanding, and then we can all understand each other and have a good outcome and get to that goal of good language.
Winston, believe it or not.
So does that make sense?
We've had these type of field trips before, at least I have when I was in enforcement.
Yay, field trips.
Yeah, hey, yay, field trip. I've gone up into the attic with the ACR guys and our inspectors to figure out, because I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, it'll help.
As we plan field trips without our executive director's input at all, I don't even think Nick wants to bring that on up there, but I don't think it's a bad thing. Okay. I think we can definitely, we can't arrange when the babies are going to come, but I don't think Karen would mind a little field trip. And I'm not saying, and Elizabeth either, but that's something we can schedule. We can talk about that offline, because we're really just talking about, and we can talk about it as a future agenda item. But getting back into the agenda, which stems from a work group conversation. And from that work group conversation, it looks like we want to maybe put on the agenda to have, I keep wanting to say field trip, but
Or does it even need to go on the agenda? I mean, this is
we'll
something we
report
put
back.
forward.
we'll report back.
Okay,
Because
we can
we
report back.
definitely
Okay.
want to be just kind of a public, just
Okay.
for that very bad thing easy. So it's not unheard of. It happens.
I think it'd be very helpful.
I've been to boxing matches. I mean, yeah, because I didn't know what went into the inspectors' jobs for taping the. It's a whole thing that they have to watch these people. So that goes in line with what we do at TDLR, and it's not a bad idea at all.
Okay. And then I had a wording change over holidays when we were all probably on vacation and stuff, and I just wanted to bring that to our attention. We can look at, before the rules actually go into the next.
The rules have already been sent up for approval to.
Did you see my email?
Yes,
before
and
you
your changes were incorporated.
They were. Okay, perfect. That was the.
See
I wanted to
how
know
we
one way or
are
the other.
communal?
That.
Under the wire. Great.
I think that's it. Oh, my apologies. We tried to make rules on the apprentice assistant stuff, and it just didn't. I think we needed more time on that, and actually I think it needs to go to education.
We might want to entertain the idea of licensure for apprentices too.
Hold on.
That's
Janet.
another item altogether.
Mary Winston, TDLR.
Yeah.
You all are hopscotching all over this thing. It's great that
It's what we
you're.
do.
And it is. I can always rely on everyone keeping me on my toes for these meetings. We're talking about other agenda items right now. We're moving forward with that, and let's just keep with where we are on the agenda. Also, an apprentice is a term of art that would have to be defined, and I know you understand that.
Yeah.
But that's another work group conversation. Currently, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
in
We attempted
statute.
to do that in the standard of care work group, and it needs more time in it. I think it needs.
Okay.
Is part of my report.
Okay, that's part of your
Yeah. Seems pertinent to me.
And now I'm finished with my report.
I have a question. Are we going to see that language before on this before?
I think, right,
Which
Elizabeth,
language?
About the apprentice and assistant.
No, not that
We
language.
agreed
just
to
your
table it.
report.
My recollection
Table it,
was
yeah.
there was a series of emails that went back and forth.
I'm not
That's
talking
really
about the
all we could-
apprentice.
She's not
I'm talking
talking
about
about
your
that.
report of the language about large for dates and.
So that's gonna, I think, so then maybe Elizabeth can talk about what the next steps of the process is for the rules.
Well, I'm a little confused.
Okay.
My confusion.
Restate the question then. This question was your report that you came about the language, what they want, is that going to be voted for?
You will
Before-
see the language the time that the rules are brought before the board for right before we publish it. So what we are at now is that the General Counsel, Brad Bowman, review and comment, looks at them for review and comment. If he has any edits that need to be made before they're sent up to exec, those will be made at that time. Then the rules will be sent up to exec. It'll wind through that whole process. And at a certain point, the rules will be ready for me to present them to you. We will review each rule and the language and discuss why changes are being made. And then I will ask you for permission to publish the rules for public comment. If you give permission to publish the rules, they will be published, and the public will have 30 days to comment. At the end of that period, we will meet again, and I'll talk with you about whatever comments the public made. And then I will ask you whether you want to send them for adoption to the commission as is, or whether you want to withdraw some, maybe you want some rewrites. There's a lot of things that can happen at that stage. But that's the final stage, is you get a motion and get getting the required number of votes to send those off for adoption by the commission. Then the commission has their chance to look at those rules and decide whether they're comfortable with them, to adopt them, and to make them part of our rules.
I have a question. How long does this process take?
It's a very lengthy process. We are on a schedule. The particular schedule that we are on, because there was one statute that affected you all during the last legislative session with regards to the eye drops for the newborns.
Mm-hmm.
And not unlike other programs, you used that opportunity to make a few changes to other rules as well. If you were going to open up the rules, you wanted to go ahead and do some other changes, right?
Correct, yeah.
But we are on a schedule to implement that rule as it relates to the eye drops for the newborns, okay? And so the current schedule says that you all, it's going to go to Brad, then it goes up to exec, winds its way through the system, 30-day public comment, and then I think we're supposed to meet sometime in mid-February for me to present you those rules and the public comments.
Great,
Okay, spring.
great,
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
thanks.
That's helpful.
Okay.
Any other updates from any other work groups?
Did you want to assign Destiny to a work group?
Yes.
And it looks like, is there any specific work group, Destiny, you would prefer to be assigned to, or?
Standards of care.
So that one currently has 4 members. I believe we are limited to 4 members. So unless, the enforcement work group currently has an opening, the enforcement work group.
Meredith, there's also education where the previous consumer member is listed on there.
Ah, thank you.
So there's a little wiggle room, yeah.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
She can be on the work groups.
Yes. Would you be interested in taking over those positions in the enforcement and the education and examination work groups? All right.
Great.
Add Destiny to both of those. Thank you.
Because she's out.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anything else related to work groups? Thank you, and thank you for volunteering to serve on those, Destiny. Appreciate that.
One more time, I'm sorry, we were having internal conversation.
We're adding Destiny to the enforcement work group and the education and examination work group. That's okay? All right. And next, we have that recommendation. We had deferred public comment towards the end of the meeting, but I think it might be productive to have public comment now before we move forward with recommendations for agenda items for the next board meeting.
Absolutely.
I do have one public comment form completed at this time. Paula Davis, you wish to address the board.
So Paula Davis, ATM. Most of the things you covered, so I just want to, go over that again. The registry list of midwives. Before it was very user-friendly. You clicked on alphabetical, it came up. And now, I even tried once you said that, it's still very difficult to get that. You can search for a person and it can come up, but just to get the list with the addresses. And will the list have addresses like it did before, or is it just a list with a license number saying current and not current? I would like it to
Cheryl
be.
got addresses to mail off.
Huh?
Cheryl got addresses to save the
Right.
cards.
Yeah, it's hard to get there, though. It seems like it could be a little more user-friendly. And then, secondly, just to agree with the comments made for the education committee work group, now called enforcement, if we could have a time quarterly, we've been talking about this since long before we moved over to TDLR, and still, we keep talking about it, but I've never seen anything come across where we're actually doing that. And so to encourage that process, like, is there a time frame? It was an important part of our education system. ATM's program, it was a requirement for our students. And so now that that component's gone, it's left kind of a void there. And so to have a time where we come together and go over those cases, not just a list of, we heard this many cases and this many were closed, but to actually hear what was the complaint, what was the decision made for that, for education. I'd like to see that move along and us find out, when is that actually going to take place? Is this year, next year? Is it really never going to happen? I'd like to see something on that come across. And then the other thing is, when we talked about standard of care changes, there's been some confusion when we talk to midwives in Texas. Are our rules open? Are our rules closed? When are they open? I know that the TDLR can open them at any time. I know that they have to be open in 2021. But while we're making these standard of care changes, some of the language changes, it seems like those are actually changing our laws. Just with a definition change, in reality, it changes the law or how we practice. So some clarification maybe on when our rules are open. Are they always open now? Or are they closed?
Unfortunately, public
I know.
comment, we can't respond, but
So-
that's a kind of a factual thing, so we'll talk.
Okay, then we can talk. Otherwise, thank you for all you do. You're doing a great job. That's my comment.
Thank you. Were there any other public comments before I bring the public comment portion to a close? That appears to be all our public comment for the day. That brings us to recommendations for the next board meeting. All right, could you listen?
One, I would think these were really an agenda I really like to see concerns put on the public. Another issue, I would put that on the agenda, that there might be a work group on to discuss NRP, because NRP has been very, very problematic. And so if it's a long road to go down education to change what NRP is. But right now, it's required for licensure, so I'd like to discuss it on that level. So I'd like that agenda item. Then the last one is TER. That's the Texas Electronic Registry. Every midwife that I know of has a nightmare story to talk about TER. And so I would like to put an agenda item that maybe y'all could help us bring somebody from TER to work with us. We've got a major, major, major problem. It's always been a problem from the time of its inception, and it's just getting worse. And it's prehistoric. It doesn't work on Mac computers. A lot of people have Mac computers.
Every midwife is nodding.
Oh, it's
right now.
We don't have time to even go into all the problems there are with TER, and we need to fix that. So however you want to word that on an agenda item, we need to fix it because it's broken big time.
Okay. Thank you, Janet. Do you have any other list of
I
agenda
have
items?
one. I'm wondering if we could get somebody from, I would imagine it would be
Electronic
Dishes, to give a presentation on the critical congenital heart defect rules. I think there's some misunderstanding about our, what we're required to do.
Any other,
that'd
agenda-
be right.
okay, any other agenda items? Anything else?
Enough here.
Anyone else with the agenda items to bring forward for our next meeting? Thank you. Did we get enough detail on those to be productive, do you think? All right, moving on to the discussion of the date, time, and location of the next board meeting.
Madam Chair, we've got 3 open dates for you right now.
Okay.
Early February, February 12th, 13th, or 14th at 1 p.m.
We're going to be on a midwifery cruise conference, some of us.
Oh, is that when that is?
Well,
Janet?
9th through the 15th.
Oh,
Okay.
Mary Winston, that's a real thing?
It's a real thing.
They live on a boat.
Paula
Unless we
Paula
want
and
to
I are,
meet.
there's still room if you'd like to go. You wanted an invitation, Yvonne. I know. It's educational.
Are those the only dates
Road trip,
available? Because
road
it looks like the bunch of midwives are going to be on a boat.
Sure.
yeah.
If anyone else, I know on Monday was a much better meeting day for me. I didn't know about anybody else. Monday was much
I know.
appreciated.
I know I'm getting ready in the next 10 days to make my February schedule and make it. I'm locked in. I can't change it. So
Okay.
if we know by December 9th when we have a
If it's
proposed
going to be in
meeting,
February,
if it's going to be in
if we need
February,
to
that'd be
bump it to March,
great.
We've got a little bit more.
In March, I've got a little more leeway, but
Okay.
I know by the 10th I'll be writing that schedule. So
Good to know.
I'm already past February.
you're already past
Okay.
February, so you have dates that are already blocked off. Yeah.
I can
Mary
request dates in
Winston,
March.
Dr. Nix, are there certain dates in February that you are available?
So, the schedule has been, I think, completed. The request for the schedule were due actually a couple of months ago. I don't know what dates I might be available in February because I actually have not had the schedule yet.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
if there's one, I can still put a request in, but it's typically I need 3 months ahead.
We will
unless
do our
there's-
best. I don't know if it'll be 3 months, but we will get back to you as soon as possible.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll look forward to that email regarding options on date, time, and location of the next board meeting. Is there any other business before this meeting is adjourned? As always, thank you to everyone who took the time and attended this meeting of the Midwives Advisory Board. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.